Hey, can you hear me?
Yo, I can't hear you, but I'm gonna try to turn on my my USB mic because right now it's just my laptop and it sounds like shit.
Okay. Oh!
Whoa! Whoa! See what I can do on that front.
We're live now, by the way, but don't worry.
That's cool.
But don't worry about it. No hurry.
Just I'm a boomer and I'm a moron, and so things that seem very, very simple and very easy are actually kind of difficult.
Ah, you got it. Don't worry about it. You can use a different software if you want to.
No, I mean, this will work. This will work.
Wait.
By the way, do you see me or no?
Yeah, I can see you.
Oh, okay.
I can see you, but I'm using streaming software, so you might not be able to see me. Or I'm
Okay.
using OBS.
Gotcha. Alright, let me really see how I can change my mic.
I'm gonna read some chats. Let's see what people are saying.
Go for it.
Arun, somebody's asking if we should throw soup at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, I'll meet you there.
I actually covered that today, and
Oh, I was gonna ask you about it.
yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's kind of cringe. I don't think it's working. I don't think it's getting us to the promised land.
Ladies and gentlemen watching, by the way, if you can hear me, and if you can hear that voice in the background, that's Kyle Kalinske, famous guy, Kyle Kalinske.
Well, that's not true.
Thanks for coming on, though. Either way,
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Dude, let me ask you, do you
sound
hear me
perfect.
through the... It does. Okay, so I just clicked it into the Yeti microphone, but it's weird because it's not working through my headphones, but it doesn't matter. As long as you hear me through the Yeti, it's fine.
You sound good to me.
Okay. All right, cool. Then we'll just go with that, and I don't need these headphones.
Okay, beautiful. Somebody says, "Holy hell, it's Kyle." Holy hell, is
True.
that Kyle? Somebody asked. Somebody just says Kyle. So
True, I am here, and I'm
People-
happy to be here.
people are. If you have any questions, if you have any questions for Kyle, feel free to ask. But I have a few. So what's your take on the soup kids? I call them.
Yeah, so here's my thing, like when I criticize it, I'm not saying that like all sort of extreme protest is bad, because I actually think there are instances of extreme protests that make sense. Like Chomsky gave this example that makes sense to me, which is like back during Vietnam, when they made all this military equipment, it was going to go like kill landless peasants. But they have these warehouses full of tanks or fighter jets or whatever. Chomsky makes the argument that if you go there in the middle of the night and nobody gets hurt, but you sort of blow it up and destroy all the tanks and destroy all the planes, like that's an example of even though like normie America would be against you doing it because you're doing like terrorism in a sense, it actually is morally correct because there's a real world impact of like you're delaying the massacre of citizens in Vietnam by, who knows, 3 months, 4 months or something. So there's like a material, tangible benefit. And that I get, like I agree with that. And I could even get on board with like, if you tell me they're going to go into some factory that has a pipeline that's going to be laid eventually in some new place, if they go in there and like destroy the pipeline and push the time scale back like 5 months or whatever because they have to rebuild the pipeline, I look at that and I go, look, you are materially improving the world because you're like reducing carbon emissions, even though you're doing something that people would view as like extreme or whatever. So I would agree with that. But for the soup thing, it's like you're not doing anything. Like you're just making everybody fucking hate you. Everybody's like, Van Gogh didn't do this? And then the week before it was like Picasso too. There was somebody who super glued their hand to a Picasso painting, and it's like, just can you come up with an idea that's not really dumb? Because there's not even like a real world payoff, like with the example of the Vietnam planes or the oil pipeline in a factory or something. It's just like it's not actually fixing anything, and you're pissing everybody off at the same time. So I don't like it when the left doesn't think of it first in context of like, is this going to work in any real way? Like that has to be the main consideration. And this just feels more like spazzing out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think like also now in an era of everybody a good example of this to me would be Kanye. Is all people competing and trying to like fighting for every inch of attention and like an attention economy. I think that's probably was my first thing, was like, okay, they're trying to get attention for themselves, more than the cause. Because if it was for the cause, you would maybe like do a documentary or make a video about it to spread awareness that way. It felt a little bit, but they seem pretty young too, though, right?
Yeah, they're young. You know what I would have supported? I would have supported, like, if you go in the middle of the night to like ExxonMobil headquarters or like Chevron headquarters, and you just start like breaking windows and spray painting that whole building, I'd be like, I might publicly be like, oh yeah, this is so extreme, bro. But in private conversation, I'd be like, that's sort of what's up.
Exactly. Remember the guy, but maybe we already forgot about this guy, but the guy who went to the FBI building and started shooting nail guns and stuff. He was like kind of a Trump dude or whatever.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's funny because like, it's funny how quickly that guy got just completely just offed,
Oh man. He didn't even get, I don't know, when I read the specifics of the story, he didn't even get past like the first room he walked in. Like apparently at FBI headquarters, they're like waiting for shit like this to happen. They have like big bulletproof plexiglass, and the dude walks in like holding the nail gun, and he's like, oh fuck. And then he just has to turn and run, and he ends up in a cornfield getting murked.
I know. He's like,
yeah.
He's like, God damn it, there's security at the FBI building? That ain't fair. That ain't right. Come on now.
He was surprised. He was shocked. That's funny.
Poor guy. Yeah, I would say for the soup kids, I would say heart's probably in the right place, maybe, but not, probably not going to do too much. Probably mostly people were just confused, they were just sort of like, whatever. So, I would, it's, I don't think it's going to do too much. And well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's just an easy optical win for the right, because now the right gets to have an issue where they're like, we're gonna shit on these people, and all of normie America is gonna be like, yeah, agreed, and that just sucks.
I know.
I don't like it when good issues are sort of undermined by silliness, but you can't lose sight of the issue is more important. That's actually why I say this failed, is because if it worked, like, oh, we got to snap people out of their complacency and wake them up to like the climate catastrophe, and then they do it, and people only talk about the tomato soup on the fucking painting, and it's like, well, you failed then, because you're supposed to get people to talk about climate change. That didn't actually work.
And it's been associated with people who are just trying to like get themselves attention, like you were saying, like people gluing themselves to Picassos and all that stuff. I mean, I went like a million years ago, and I actually saw the Mona Lisa, and it's like behind so much crap because people are always like trying to do something like paint on it or whatever, that people are kind of used to that, not as like a shocking thing, but as a, here we go, here comes another kook trying to get attention. You know what I mean?
So I'll be controversial here, but let me say something about the Mona Lisa. Super overrated.
Very over. You don't know. You know what it is too? It's like when you go to see it in person, you're looking at it through like 18 layers of phones. It's just it's such a like Instagram moment for people now.
Oh yeah,
that you can't
totally.
You can't even see it. But let's put that up. I'll put that to the chat. Mona Lisa overrated. What do you guys think?
Like I don't understand why it ever became like, this is the one. This will be the most famous painting of all time. It's like it's a relatively unattractive woman, like, and she's not. There's nothing like unique of it. She's just sort of sitting there with a blank face on. She sort of looks like if George Washington was trans, something like that. So I don't understand why that became the one. I mean, I don't know. I might be a little too harsh in the art realm personally, because, I mean, maybe a handful of times in my life I've sort of marveled at a painting, but it's rare, man. It's rare. I feel like it takes some next level shit to get me to be like, that's a good painting.
Shots fired. We're going after the big boys today. Leonardo da Vinci, if you're listening to this, Mona Lisa, not that great. Not that great.
Usually it's modern art that that people shit on,
Yeah.
and like I agree with that, but for some reason I'm throwing in like the classics too today, and so I was just defending the Van Gogh painting. Now I'm like, fuck Van Gogh.
We'll throw them all in. We'll throw them all in. All art bad. All art bad and overrated. I did have some stuff to ask you. The people who subscribe to my channel, I think a lot of my subscribers are huge Jordy Peterson fans. We love Jordan Peterson around here. You actually got to debate. It seems like Jordan Peterson could be a little bit of a slippery debate or interview partner. Can you tell us how that happened? Because I think that's a classic internet moment. Your talk with him.
Yeah. So what happened was, I think it was like 5 months before that or something.
Mm-hmm.
We reached out to him. We were able to set up a date or we wanted to set up a date. And what happened? Oh, we did actually. We did set up the date, and then what happened was, like a day or two before he was supposed to do it, he backed out. And I remember I talked about it on my show because I had already told everybody, like, oh, he's coming on this day, and then he backed out a day or two before, and so I was in a position where I had to like address it, like I had to say, well, I know he was supposed to be on Crystal Kylan Friends tomorrow, but he backed out, right? And so I did a little segment on it, and I was like, look, I hope eventually we'll get him back on. I hope it's not sort of what it appears to be, which is maybe he came across some of my stuff and was like, oh, he's too left wing or whatever, and backed out. But I mean, to his credit, he did just eventually come on, right? I think what happened was when he dropped out and I did the little segment on it, there was enough of a backlash that he got wind of it. Because he makes this whole thing about like, oh, I want to debate lefties, but like none of them even want to talk to me, bro. And off the top of my head, I can name 5 prominent lefties who would love to talk to him. Myself, Vosh, Sam Cedar, like the list goes on. A lot of people want to talk to him. So, but anyway, I think he got a little bit of the backlash from it, and he was like, okay, I guess I will like talk to them. Either that or Rogan maybe said something to him behind the scenes, like, yeah, no, you should do his show. And so we eventually got him on, and when I went into that interview, it was actually kind of a tough line to walk because in part of your mind you want to do the thing where it's like, here's the list of like the 15 dumbest things you've ever said, and like I'm gonna sort of hammer you over the head with it, right?
Right.
But then if you do that though, you're running the risk of like what happened to that Channel 4 interviewer who interviewed him, and she sort of looked ridiculous because she kept trying to sort of like straw man him, and
Right.
it was easy for him to like swat it aside. And so I couldn't do the clobber him over the head. Also, it feels weird when you invite somebody on the show and then like you chastise them. It's like strange, right? And so I decided to go just the route of like, let me ask some kind of basic stuff and just see where he takes it. And yeah, that is one thing I noticed in the course of doing the interview is that he is very slippery. Like you'll ask a pretty direct question and then he'll just sort of go on a long tangent that's like somewhat related to what you said, but not really directly answering it. And then of course the moment that blew up probably the biggest was when we talked about trans stuff and I brought up his comment about Elliot Page, how like it's a criminal physician who cut off the breasts or whatever. And I was like, but Elliot Page is an adult, so if you agree that adults have a right to do whatever they want, then why would the doctor be criminal? I mean, it's just, this is an adult human being who's free to make up their own mind to be whatever the fuck they want. Like, why would that be criminal? And I sort of pressed him on that just a little bit because he tried to change the conversation to kids. He tried to make it seem like I'm in favor of kids transitioning and I want to mangle children or whatever the fuck. And I was like, I didn't say anything about kids. I'm asking you about an adult. And so do you think that, should adults not have the right to transition if they want? And then, there was the long pause and he was like, I don't know. And it's interesting because even people who were like Jordan Peterson fans watch that and were like, oh, well, that's a little too extreme. I don't agree with that. And so, because there is sort of this split in his community, there were people who were more like 2017, 2018 Jordan Peterson fans where he had some plausible deniability about his politics and he focused more on psychology stuff and self-help stuff.
Right.
And then there's like the newer Jordan Peterson fans who like learned about him through Ben Shapiro and think he's like, epic right-wing professor guy. And so really the goal was like sort of clarification in that interview, and effectively, I think I did a decent job of making it so that people who were maybe in that previous group of Jordan Peterson supporters realize that, this is not a guy who's just helping people clean their room and shit now. He actually is more openly on the right. And it was even clarifying for me too, because, any semblance of plausible deniability was sort of gone by the end of my interview with him,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a thing like, because I cover all these right-wing channels for, my own content. One thing I've noticed, I mean, I'm almost like man, they're really overfishing on this transgender topic. I mean, it's like literally every Tucker Carlson episode has to have a trans segment. It's just like Charlie Kirk every time it's got to do. And like and I was like, the other day I was just like going for a walk, and I was like, oh, let me just actually think about this. Let me just think through like what's going on here. And if you think about it at all, there's really no argument there. It's like they've been arguing, people on the right have been arguing for the past year. We've been hearing them talk about medical rights and parents' rights. And it's like, okay, so when you start talking about kids with transgender issues, you've already been talking about that basically. So that's kind of out. For adults, it's out because adults can do whatever they want. And so it's just like, what are we even arguing about? And then you realize it's just solely a conjured up, manufactured psychological operation of an issue. It's nothing. It's not a real anything.
Well, that's what I said to Jordan, is that it feels to me like a little bit of a moral panic.
Yeah.
Like what percentage of kids are trans? Like, is there some epidemic sweeping the country that I don't know about where like 48% of kids are like, you gotta chop my dick off? Like, I don't see this, right? I don't see, and the thing is, you're right, they overreach a lot. Where Matt Walsh was caught saying on Twitter kind of openly, like, you should even ban transitioning for adults. And it's like, God damn it! Like you guys are really lost in your own bubble here. And it's the classic like distract culture war issues as they support every single fucking politician who can't wait to do another massive corporate tax cut, massive tax cut for the rich, and deregulate Wall Street and serve corporations. It's the classic move, and unfortunately, it's a head fake that it works for a lot of people. There were people who you wouldn't think were crazy were sort of, looking at the DeSantis bill where, about the LGBTQ stuff in schools, and they were like, yeah, I just think he doesn't want kids being groomed by teachers. And it's like, what do you think is happening in public schools?
Yeah.
What do you think? They're like playing It's Raining Men as they wear assless chaps and they twerk? Like, what do you think is going on here? Then of course it. Go ahead.
No. It just feels totally manufactured to me at this point. Like at first, I was like, I have that thought watching these people because obviously, like people who resonate, like the actual people who watch right-wing content and it clicks with them. Like I just can't get into that mindset. I think obviously, but I was like, a lot of the time I'm like, let me take a look at this and see just what this is, and it's just never made sense to me, and it's always felt like a moral panic, like you're saying. And I think that's all it is if you don't have any policy issues that are going to help people, which are simple, we know what they are. I mean, which is why I don't know why we supported. Well, why I supported a presidential candidate, really like a figurehead candidate, political candidate like Bernard Sanders, is because he was just like very like to the point. Here's some policies that everybody likes. Let's talk about those. This is like obviously kind of the opposite of the opposite version of that politics, where it's looking for things that are divisive. Look, because with transgender issues, that's almost, I think from last time I checked, that's where the biggest split is between people who identify as Republicans and people who identify as Democrats, and probably rural urban divide too. So they've just pinpointed the biggest schism, and they're like, let's just keep twisting that knife as much as we can to keep people away from things that they actually agree on.
Yeah, and it kind of works in a sense. Like a lot of the dialogue does sort of get hijacked by that, and then everybody ends up talking about that, and it's sort of off in the weeds. And like their argument, and I've had conversations with people who are probably more right leaning or like centristy or whatever, and their argument is like, I think they call it a social contagion. Like I'm afraid that you got a kid who if they make being trans popular, then a lot of kids are gonna sort of be trans, and maybe they'll get a surgery and they'll feel like they ruined their life, and we got to be careful. Kids are impressionable, and so so they've said that to sort of cast doubt. Yeah, with gay people, right? And also it's not like we know like what percentage of trans people actually end up detransitioning, right? And it's like less than 1% or something. So like we know what actually ends up happening, and it just it's very strange. It becomes like an all-consuming issue for them. It's very, very weird.
Yeah, I just think it's you gotta find something. If you don't have policies, you gotta find something, and this is what they've found to kind of focus on. I gotta tell you this: in my chat, we have a repeat sort of I would say like a free advertiser in our chat. It's Tinder-hot.xyz best adult dating site. Are you familiar with this site? Can you vouch for this site? What do you think of this site? What do you think of advertising this way?
I can't say I'm familiar with the site. And I can't say I'm familiar with the amount of spam one would get in one of these chats, because I haven't really done live stuff in a while. I don't even read my Twitter mentions because I'm a sensitive boy, and so I don't want to hurt my feelings.
I'd rather not know. Like there's been a few people who will send me messages, and they'll go, "Hey, this person's making fun of you," or "Here's a tweet that says you're stupid," or whatever. I'd just rather not know.
Yes.
If someone thinks I'm an idiot, or if somebody has a good, reply, they say, "Oh, I think you got this wrong, and here's why." X, Y, totally great. If somebody's just like, "Hey, you're fat, ugly, disgusting," I'm like, I'd rather not know. I like living in ignorance about how much of a goofball or a puke I look like on video. That stuff is just not going to help me, I don't think.
It's actually true that ignorance is bliss. That's actually like factually accurate. That when you don't know what people are saying about you and if they're shitting on you. And the thing is, if you have enough people in your inner circle, like let's say you have 2 or 3 people in your inner circle, they'll keep you honest. Like if you actually get some shit wrong, they'll be like, you got this shit sort of wrong.
That's the hardest part about watching Ye is whatever. I mean, I'm over it, and I'm sure you're over about hearing, and we're falling into his trap, his attention trap, by even talking about him. But but it feels like, man, he's got no real friends around him. He's just got yes men, and nobody's saying, hey, whoa, buddy, ease it up on the anti-Semitism stuff. That's not gonna fly, dude.
Did you see the interview that dropped yesterday? The one on I think the podcast is called Drink Champs.
Yes. Yes.
Did you see it? I watched the whole thing.
You watched the whole? Okay, well, I gotta ask you about the whole thing because I saw the worst clips of it, and I'm because usually you get for me growing up, you would see a celebrity do something crazy, and then you would see hey, I'm sorry, I'm gonna spend time with my family. Kanye's going the opposite. I'm gonna just burn this whole thing to the ground. What was in the rest? What was in the rest of the interview?
So first of all, it was over 3 hours. That's the first point. Right. Second of all, I don't think this podcast normally puts a disclaimer before the podcast, but they added a disclaimer before it that was like, just so you know, like these aren't the beliefs of, the hosts or the network we're affiliated with or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And so I saw, there was like a Twitter thread that I saw, which had a bunch of the moments that were like, some of the more noteworthy moments or whatever. And so I watched all those and I was like, damn, there's a lot of fucking crazy shit in this podcast. Let me go watch the rest of it. And I was thinking like, oh, when I watch the rest of it, I already saw the juiciest parts in the Twitter thread. So there's not going to be more shit in the podcast, right? Dude, the stuff that even made it to Twitter was like low level shit. In the podcast itself, it's honestly one of the craziest. I'm surprised. I would be surprised if it doesn't get pulled by YouTube. And YouTube is actually generally a little more pro free speech than like Facebook and Twitter and some of the other social media outlets.
Yeah.
But even they might be like, because it's like the podcast like 3 hours and 30 minutes. He spends like 2 hours and 30 minutes going after Jews.
Oh man,
dude, it's okay. There's a part in the pod, just to put this in perspective for you. There's a part in the podcast where he says, "My goal is to make some like young Jewish boy go to his dad and say, 'Daddy, what did we do wrong?'" And this is, I'm just giving you like little bits and pieces here, man. And by the way, he throws Ice Cube under the bus in a crazy way because he's like, shout out to Ice Cube who put me on the anti-Semitism shit. I'm not even kidding. So I covered it. When we're done with this interview, you could check out my videos. Probably dropping at some point while we're talking here. But when we're done talking, you could check it out. I covered his podcast, and as I said in the video, I'm not even going to be able to get to all of the crazy parts in this video, even though I'm picking the craziest parts because there's too fucking many. But I did like a 26-minute video that had like 7 different clips, all of him. Like he said the word Jew more than a Hitler speech.
Oh boy.
Like he was nonstop. Nonstop. So you're right. He doesn't have anybody. Nobody can rein him in because I guess he's not really close to anybody. Mm-hmm. But he's also not helping himself. Like he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Right. Dude, you have bipolar disorder. Go take your fucking medicine.
Yeah.
And like be a normal person. Go make some music after you take your medicine. He won't do it. We're all watching like the slow motion car crash with Kanye, and like everybody feels powerless to fucking do anything.
You know what? Like these little attention stunts used to. Okay, not that. I mean, this is full on. An absolute horror. But he's sort of attention getting tactics or whatever, like the jumping on stage during Taylor Swift. Is like kind of okay. This is kind of funny, this is kind of fun. Man, what a wrong turn! What a horrible turn the attention hunt has taken. Good lord, dude! I'll say the worst possible one, maybe.
If you put him in front of the wrong fucking like Reddit thread, or you put him in front of the wrong like YouTube video, and he goes down a YouTube rabbit hole.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
He's done. He's powerless.
Yeah.
He's powerless to like get out of it. And it actually is a cautionary tale about radicalization, right? Like this shit can happen to a lot of people.
Same with Joe Rogan. That is true. You can kind of feel it when he's goes off on one of his Fox News tangents.
Dude, I tried so hard. I know people gave me a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. I've been on Rogan's podcast like 4 times or whatever.
You gotta go. You gotta go on Joe. Oh my god. No, but nobody should give you a hard time. But that's huge.
I need everybody to know.
Yeah.
As you were shitting on me for fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
I was trying so goddamn hard.
Yeah.
I tried so hard, and every show, people could go watch it. I say stuff. He's like, totally. I like that. I agree with that. That's reasonable. He has on Cornel West or Bernie Sanders. It's the same thing. Like, oh yeah, I agree with that. That's cool. Then he has on like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, and he's like, totally, I agree with that too.
Yeah, I mean, lately he's really gone down. It just seems like he's got Fox News on a lot or something. Because there's a lot of talking points. He does this thing, like he has bits almost that he goes into that seem just totally taken from Fox News. I've talked about this on my channel a couple times. He's really pissed off about this clip of Rashida Tlaib kind of giving Jamie Dimon a hard time. It's a kind of innocuous clip where she goes, hey, because he's kind of been speaking out against the $10,000 student debt relief, right?
Yep.
Which is like, to me, yeah, of course, we need to get rid of the very idea of student debt the way it is now completely, and fine. But $10,000 helped a lot of people, and it looks like, to me, it disproportionately helped lower income people.
It definitely did.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So Joe Rogan has this thing that he he's so pissed off about this clip where Rashida Tlaib is telling Jamie Dimon, hey, you've been speaking out against this 10 grand for so long. Maybe people should take their, should cut off their accounts with your bank if you don't have their best interest. It's just like it's a mild truth to power moment. That's really all it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Joe Rogan is so pissed off about that Rashida Tlaib would like mouth off to Jamie Dimon or something. But he's been playing this clip over and over, and it's just like, why do you love this clip so much, Joe? I would want to ask him, and it feels like it's just because they framed it on Fox News or Ben Shapiro or something. They framed it in a way that made it seem very negative, and it just stuck in his brain.
First of all, you're so right. He's like this across the board. So I remember the way I even got on his podcast was crazy, because I think he was doing a podcast with like Steven Crowder or something. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked Joe, like, Steven Crowder asked Joe, like, you don't really have any like lefties on or anything. And Joe said something like, I mean, I'd love to have them on, but I don't really know like who the
generally speaking
lefties are.
Chinese people.
But yeah, I'd have no problem having them on. And so then I tweeted at him and was like, hey man, here's a list of like people who would love to go on your podcast. This is back in fucking like 2016 or whatever the fuck, right? Mm-hmm. And I included myself in the tweet thing. And then he saw the tweet, and then he went and looked through my channel, my YouTube channel, and he found a video that had the same sort of like triggering effect on him that you're describing, that like, how he'll just get like obsessed with something.
Yeah.
And the video was, it was some right wing watch video where some pastor was saying that like, Donald Trump is born again and he's come to Jesus, and like all that stuff he did in the past doesn't matter. All like the sleeping with porn stars, all the, being the least religious man on the planet. It's irrelevant because now he's come to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And there was something about that video that triggered the thing in him. And he brought it up like 5-6 times on podcasts after that. This is how he functions. But yes, now more of his media diet. What happened was when he was in the news like every other week over like some COVID shit, right? Mm-hmm. He noticed like, oh, these Fox guys are defending me, and like big bad MSNBC and CNN is shitting on me. And so in his mind now he goes, oh well, these guys are have to be truth. These are the truth tellers.
That's what it is.
That is what it is. And then the thing that's driving me the craziest though, and I've tried so hard. I've already done like 2 or 3 different videos on this. And I do the videos in a way where it's like I'm not just talking to the audience. It's also like I'm talking directly to Joe. And I'm like, dude, your love of DeSantis is literally flies in the face of everything you've claimed to believe in. Like there's the famous video clip that was put together of all like the left-wing things Joe said. And in it's a lot of stuff. I believe in free college. I believe in free healthcare. I believe in higher taxes on the rich. Well, like all that stuff. And then like to support DeSantis and do it like he's not doing it even tepidly anymore. Maybe you can make an argument early on like, oh, he was sort of doing it tepidly. Mm-hmm. But now he's done it like 3 or 4 different times, and it's not really all that tepid anymore. And like if you supported Bernie Sanders and now you support Ron DeSantis, then like you literally are making political decisions based on vibes. Like you're just like, I just like this guy's vibe. Mm-hmm. Like he seems kind of reasonable and stuff, like that's his go-to. And it's like, dude, your number one issue has been legalizing weed for the longest time. Ron DeSantis is on the record as saying we shouldn't legalize weed because it smells like shit. Like this is your main issue. Uh-huh. And you're still, he keeps defending him. He keeps saying like, yeah, that guy seems super reasonable, and it's driven me crazy, man. It really has.
I mean, maybe he represents an American archetype of some kind that is just really into the vibe thing, or can be thrown back and forth by issues like wokeness or something.
It's definitely the woke thing too. Yeah, the woke thing is so many like decent people have gotten lost on the anti-woke battlefield, right, where they start to think like, it starts off with the basic thing which most people agree with, which is like, yeah, I don't think some like pink-haired college kid should be able to ban a conservative speaker on a college campus. And I agree with that. Like, yeah, sure, yeah, don't censor people, don't be authoritarian no matter what you think the reason is, even if I'm doing it for the right reasons. Like, no, fuck that. Don't be authoritarian. It starts there. And then if you go down that slide, at some point it ends up with like, it's woke to eliminate student loan debt. And it's like, what? No, that makes no sense at all. It becomes like the wet blanket for everything. So the right just now, they tested the woke thing, and it's like, they know it lands and it works. And so they just now they just throw out everything's woke. Like everything ever is woke. Free college is woke, free healthcare is woke, higher wages is woke, and, ending wars is woke. Like, it's just now everything is woke. And people, he sort of lost the plot on that battlefield of anti-wokeness,
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you could go back like, oh man, these wokesters that want women to vote come on, man. What is this? Yeah, it's sort of funny. It's funny watching that, watching things, memes or whatever, like, evolve. Because I remember there was the is it Donald Glover? What's Donald Glover's music name? But
oh my god,
I'm just blanking on it.
Hold on.
Oh, Childish Gambino.
Childish Gambino, he has that song Redbone, which I like.
Yeah, so in Redbone he says I think he says stay woke. And there was a point. Yeah, so there was a point back then, I guess. This has happened in such a short time span that back then it's still kind of whatever. It's was a pop culture phrase or pop culture word, slang word that meant basically just not being dumb, maybe knowing about history, and then it's from maybe conservative media mostly, maybe, it's totally been repurposed to mean anybody who's kind of annoying, who
oversensitive, petty authoritarian,
petty authority, and you're right. Now it's just edging totally into anything that's left of Ronald Reagan is woke,
Yeah, and they go like Rogan he's sort of, freedom is a big thing to him, right? He said it a bunch of times, like, that's his main concern is freedom, caring about freedom. And it's like, but then there's never any discussion about the fact that, like, Roe versus Wade was just overturned, and that is, like, deeply anti-freedom.
Right.
There was a vote on gay marriage in the House now, and 157 Republicans voted against it. At the same time, they were concerned that, like, maybe the Supreme Court's going to overturn gay marriage, so we better codify it. 157 Republicans voted against it. 195 Republicans voted against the right to contraception. So they want to allow states like Mississippi and Alabama to ban contraception, ban the pill, ban condoms. Like, so if you care about this issue, which you should, and I care about this issue, then, like, how can you miss this? Like, this is way bigger an issue than some asshole kid yelling at Ben Shapiro. Like,
yep.
I think that's pretty obvious, but it's not landing. And the thing is, his podcast is so influential and so big.
Yep.
And there was a time when net, even the political message coming out of his stuff was good. It was palatable. It was better than what you get in mainstream media.
Yeah.
And now it's at the point where it's like, not really. Like, there was that clip where he said, I forget who he was talking to, but he said one of the lessons of the pandemic was vote Republican.
Right.
And
Aaron Rodgers, I think he was talking to Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, it was with Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, even if he were to claim, which I don't know if he would, but even if he were to claim, like, oh, I was just joking, you could see my grin after I say it or whatever, it's like, what percentage of the audience is going to think, yeah, he was joking? It's definitely a minority, without a doubt a minority. So, it's just, you see stuff like that and you're like, damn, I failed. I tried, man, but I failed. Maybe I overestimated my own ability to, sort of change minds in a sense. But
yeah, I don't know. And also I think there's part of it is that those kind of wacky clips seem to go more viral. I think the Aaron Rodgers stuff got just a million views right away, or he'll have some, anti-vax or whatever on, it'll get 1 million or whatever. He had Ben Burgess on, and I forgot that Ben Burgess was even on, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think part of it is that weird attention economy stuff. But no, I think it's definitely good that you went on there and talked to him. But can you tell us maybe? Well, actually, one of the chat asked an interesting question, which is, what's your favorite Gatorade color?
That's a great question. So I kind of default to the dark blue one. That's my default.
Whoa!
Okay, wait. Dark is not the right word. Bright blue, the bright blue one.
Bright blue. Okay.
Not the like lighter, not the baby blue one, like the brighter blue one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's my default one. But now I'm gonna expose my taste as that of a toddler. The other day I was at a gas station and I saw there was like a green Gatorade. And I was like, I have to try that because it's green and it's Gatorade, and I like all those things.
You're getting into territory that the chat is very interested right now. They are on the edge of their seat with the green Gatorade because.
And so it was sort of like a I think it was like an apple flavor or something.
Okay.
And I fucking loved it. I thought it was great.
Good.
And then I Crystal tried it, and he was
Spit
like,
it out. Spit it out.
That's literally the most disgusting thing I've ever had in my life. She's like, it's the fakest fucking taste I've ever tasted in my life. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought that shit was delicious. But
a million years ago, I was with my ex-girlfriend, and I get this was when you could get Four Loko, and I gave her a Four Loko, and the face that this woman made with the one sip was like, it was like I had done some horrendous, like I just like totally betrayed her by not telling her what this thing, just the most contorted, disgusted face I've ever seen.
So we're kindred spirits, man, because I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. So I used to, before I did political commentary, I worked as a car salesman. I was in the car business, and I usually, I'm not a morning person, so I would work the later shifts. I believe it was it from 1 to 9? I think it was. So 9 o'clock at night is when I'd wrap up at work, and it gets kind of slow as it gets later in the day, and we would often say, "Fuck it, let's go get some drinks," right? And so there were some nights we do, that Foster's beer, that, the Foster's Australian for beer.
The one that
commercial?
comes in like a mini keg.
Yes,
giant can.
exactly.
Yeah.
Just giant can. Very, very strange. So some nights we'd have that. And then other nights, I would get Four Loko. And I used to actually, when I first started the show, me and Corin would do it, and like 5 people would be listening, and we'd be getting ripped. He would be having beer, and I'd be drinking Four Loko. And yeah, it was like straight up cocaine in a can, man. They changed the ingredients of it because some kids were having like heart attacks when they would drink it. Some 21-year-olds would drink a Four Loko and have to go to the fucking hospital because it's like having like hard alcohol mixed with crack cocaine.
They ruined it for us responsible Four Loko users.
Exactly.
These miserable kids.
Exactly. But there were times, I'm not gonna lie to everybody. Yes, there were times when I was at the dealership and it was late and nobody was there, and I would kill a Four Loko can, and I'd also have like a Percocet with it, and woo-wee, man. I was gonzo at those moments.
Oh man. The views of Kyle do not reflect the RM Brown channel.
Now let me tell you about the Jews.
Oh my god. You know what? We should do a show like Joe Rogan. You know how Joe Rogan is always, he'll have somebody on who will go into the bro science stuff. Like, oh, if you eat, if you rub raw meat all over your taint, then you get $100 immediately. Like just these bullshit things that you like are too, like, it's just too dumb to even fact check some of this stuff. We should do that, but give like advice about like, hey, you should put like one of those like 4-hour energy drinks inside a 40, and then like just the dumbest substance abuse ideas.
Dude, I'm full of those like bro science ideas. The difference is I know when I'm doing bro science.
Right.
Yeah, oftentimes a lot of other people don't know when they're doing it, but I know when I'm doing it. I do it all. Corin and I do it all the time. I have so many dumb theories.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean that's another thing is like I watched for my channel, actually for the last video that I uploaded, I watched Tucker Carlson's what is it? It's like The End of Men or something like that. And it's,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's basically I don't know. It's like maybe like a almost a goof or it feels like a goof. It feels like a satire on bro science stuff. And it's so funny the people that they get to talk about this stuff. It's that guy, what's that guy? Mike Cernovich.
Oh my God.
Just these like kind of goobers, these weirdos to talk about like, oh well, men, this and that, men used to, like they. I think that in their brain they think of themselves as like knights, knights of the round table, but they're really just dweebs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that guy tried to get me banned, by the way, on social media, which is hilarious because he's one of these like I'm anti-cancel culture guys, and they tried to get me kicked off of Twitter. Oh. But yeah, it's an interesting field, right? Because you have like that guy Andrew Tate who was just banned on all these different platforms, and it's kind of amazing to me that he blew up in the first place, and it's kind of amazing to me that the sort of manosphere red pill thing blew up in the first place, because I look at it like that Fresh and Fit podcast too. They talk about similar things, and I think like this is just every single high school boy and college boy in the country. Like I was these guys back when I was like 19 and horny as fuck. Like that, yeah, like you start to develop a whole world fucking philosophy around like how do I get my nut off more, and how do I like make more women want me, and their whole philosophy boils down to like get women, get money, and like sort of get your shit together a little bit, like don't be a slob, fucking clean shit up, like try to get your act together type stuff. And it's kind of sad when you think about it that this stuff has blown up to the extent it has blown up, because it's just like some of the stuff is obvious, and then a lot of the other stuff is just like, let's have the most narrow-minded worldview ever, where I tell you that if you work 70 hours a week, that's a miserable job to make more money, that like that's going to be more fulfilling or something, or even having some hot woman who you're dating, it's like that's it, that's the trick, that's going to make you happy. It's not like she's going to leave you in 4.5 months and you're going to be fucking miserable after that, like all these hollow pursuits. And it kind of makes me sad that these things got popular, because I thought we were kind of past that, I guess, but I naively thought like when I grew out of my fucking horny teen phase, like the world would or something. But it makes me sad that those guys blew up, because I feel like it's kind of misleading people, and a lot of people really believe in that stuff and really fell for it and really think like there's some sort of life philosophy to be built around this, and it's just so hollow and so vapid.
I didn't really think about it when Andrew Tate was blowing up there for a month or whatever, when he really blew up. I didn't really think about who are his fans, and then I looked into it for a video, and they're all 15. They're all 15 and 16. Yeah, and so it's so obvious, because you're right. It's not only a hollow pursuit, but it's a very silly pursuit, because it's also, I thought about it a little bit, and I'm sort of like, at that age, the age of an Andrew Tate follower is in high school. And when you're in high school, for better or for worse, the most important thing is getting in a group of friends and being just like an easygoing, semi-normal person, and not putting on a veneer. Because when you get into the veneer, when you get into the this is my thing, that's when you get into shirt off, swinging a sword in your backyard on TikTok territory. And that's where you don't want to end up as a 15-year-old. And I feel like it just pushes them into this very alienating territory where they can't be normal and have a normal teen life that's supposed to be fun and meeting girls in a very normal way. Let's go out, let's have fun kind of thing, and turning it into this bizarre, goofy identity that is only going to make you seem like a weirdo, I think.
Yeah, and their whole thing is like become like a high value male, become a high value, like become an alpha male.
Hey, I'm a high value. I'm a value meal. I'm a low value meal.
And it's just like that's not a thing. You can't just wake up one day and decide like I'm alpha and I'm gonna fucking like women are gonna want me and I'm gonna be smooth and charismatic. It's like you could actually try to develop as a human being in ways that will genuinely make you grow. And then in my experience in my life, I've always felt like if you have a meaning, if you have a purpose, if you have something you care about and you put your all into it, then you develop through that and you grow in all ways, not just the narrow way with that one thing that you're pursuing. And because it almost allows you to turn down the temperature with everything else in your life. Whereas if you have nothing going on, everything feels like it's the end of the world if something goes wrong or whatever. But if you really develop as a person and put your all into something, then you can kind of mellow out in the other ways, where like you're getting out of your own way, where you'll be able to talk to women, you'll be able to be more attractive, you will get your shit together a little more. And these guys kind of put the cart before the horse. And it's also a very, if you really think about it, it's a very like capitalist, consumerist, materialist philosophy, right? Like, just get the Maserati and get the chick with the big ass, and like you're gonna be really happy, we promise. And it's like, there's so many fucking rich CEO dudes who are fucking miserable, just absolutely miserable, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably a lot of these young people's purpose is going to be something, whatever, what purpose or whatever you would want to call it, whatever obsession is going to be probably something that's not a direct line to a supercar or a mansion.
Right.
It's going to be it's going to be something that you're obsessed with in a way that a scientist or the people who early developed the internet or the actual Nikola Tesla, who died broke, I think. It's going to be something that you're obsessed with, not for money and not for quote unquote status or high value, whatever. It's going to be something that you literally want to contribute before you die, before you leave the earth. You want to contribute to something that you're trying to push forward. You're just like one hand pushing forward in this collective knowledge of something. You're right, it's totally alien to what these like fresh and fit guys talk about, which is all basically to show off to other people how much money you have, and you know that you have the hottest girlfriend and all this stuff. I think it's almost like counter to that stuff, to being obsessed with something meaningful.
Yeah, they also have crazy ideas around relationships. Like they argue that like a man should be able to have however many women he wants, but a woman can only have one man. And then when they're pressed on that, they just fall back into like the ultimate cop-out argument, which is like, it's in our nature, bro. That's just what it is.
It's in our nature.
You need more than that to actually to actually like base your fucking life philosophy on this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that I mean, it's got to be young people watching that too, because it's got to be because it's everything that a young person would sort of fall for. Like, wow, look at all the babes around. It's like it's like, you know, like I don't know, you're kind of falling for some marketing here.
Yeah, but we got to find a way. The left has to find a way to sort of stop this, because there's so many of these kind of weird entry points into right-wing politics, you know what I mean? Where it starts out as not political at all, and then eventually it's like super fucking political.
Yeah.
And I do feel like we sort of miss out on, like the left sort of doesn't have things that are analogous to that, you know? Like the people who come and find me are people who like were interested in a video that I did on like tax rates, you know, or interested in a video where, you know, whatever, I made fun of Kanye or whatever. And it's like, it's just hard to hook people in when we're just upfront political from the beginning. And part of the problem there is that we're just more honest, right? Like I don't hide my ideology. I'm very upfront with it. I'll tell people if they ask me, whereas a lot of the stuff that's the gateway to right-wing politics, they're very dishonest about it, where they act like there is no political agenda and this is all just, you know, I'm just telling the truth. And it's hard because it's a lopsided battle, and it's one that I feel like the left has pretty much lost to this point culturally.
Well, also, I think there's like an allergy for people maybe with our political view and maybe our kind of obsession with politics, American politics and all this. There's this allergy for a lot of people. Like I'm thinking of maybe like a Jacobin writer or something. There's an allergy to talking about maybe like self-help stuff. Which for me, I was thinking about obesity, and I talked about this on the channel. Like, yeah, it would be actually really cool, and we do see in the Nordic countries and so on, from what I have seen and understand, lower rates of obesity. A lot of parts of Europe, lower rate of obesity. You could maybe chalk that up to welfare state stuff or whatever, more egalitarian economy. Who knows? You know, probably. But in lieu of that, you know, I mean, I think it's very important to talk about, to fight for, you know, like people need to work less, and that's a collective fight. You know, to have some kind of federally funded FDR style, like health, you know, exercise programs, either, you know, even besides like universal health care, all that's cool. But in lieu of that, like we're kind of on our own. So even if we're kind of like, yeah, like there's a better way to move the big millions of percentages, you know, the millions of people, the percentage that we're trying to move the obesity rate down or something. That's going to take a you know, a collective, you know, a political action probably. But in lieu of that, we're on our own, and I think we have to talk about that stuff.
That's so true, and there's a fundamental paradox there, which we don't do well at addressing. When I say we, I mean people on the left, which is like, so if somebody is a lefty and they go out and they focus on something like, you know, self-help stuff, individual responsibility stuff, just giving like life advice on how to improve in whatever sense. You know, you run the risk of being accused of like individualizing systemic problems.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, we need to be able to acknowledge the first point you made there, which is, yeah, like almost all of these problems in one way or another are systemic, and we can address them with better public policy to improve it. But at the same time, yeah, like you said, it's not like we wake up and the revolution happens tomorrow. We can snap our fingers and get everything we want implemented tomorrow. But even if we could get everything we wanted, then yeah, there's still a reasonable conversation to be had about self-help stuff, individual responsibility stuff. And I feel like, so I'm not as averse to that as there are some people on the left who just don't want to talk about the individual responsibility stuff. I'm not as averse to that because the first thing I was interested in that I went to study in college before I got into political science was psychology. So I was just as obsessed with psychology as I was with political science. I eventually switched to political science because there was this dumbass class called statistics and psychology, which I literally couldn't do because I don't have a math brain and I'm a fucking idiot. But like, I like the psychology stuff. I like the individual stuff just as much as I like the collective stuff and the conversation about public policy. So yeah, it would be good if like sort of the taboo of discussing individual responsibility stuff disappeared on the left, you know?
Yep. Okay, I have to say this. There's this video that I watched on here that became, I guess, of this channel, of my channel, we kind of turned into like a little inside joke meme, which is there's a quote, there's something where, you know, shockingly enough, Trump is on some he's doing one of his little tours or whatever. And he's talking about trans athletes, and he's talking about a transgender swimmer. And I don't know if you've seen this video, but it's probably the weirdest phrase I've ever heard. But he's talking about how there's some trans woman swimmer who was beating the competition so much as a swimmer that that the wind, I don't even know how to explain, the wind from swimming so fast as a transgender swimmer burned the other swimmers in the pool. So the quote is the wind burned her a little bit in the pool. And we've turned that into like a catch-all phrase, like, oh, the wind burned her a little bit in the pool to you. So it's total nonsense. But someone says in the chat, congrats to Kyle and Crystal. May the wind burn them a little bit in the pool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I love more than Trump babbling about transgender issues, because I actually remember a story from one of his rallies the other day, and I'm probably going to butcher the way he phrased it, but he's trying to go through, because, you know, they load it up in the fucking prompter, and he goes through his little speech where he has his side tangents and whatnot.
Yep.
And you could tell somebody in his inner circle got wind of like, oh, this is the really big issue now, like trans people and trans in sports, bro. And so he says something like, there's going to be no teaching transgender in class without parental permission. He says no teaching transgender. He used like the phrasing of it was like so off, and it just was so obvious that he doesn't give a fuck about any of this shit.
Not an ounce.
That should offend even like the most anti-trans right-wing person in the world, because it's like he's just mimicking the shit he thinks he needs to say in order to ride the wave to get into the fucking White House again.
He should say at the end of all those kind of things, he should say, or whatever you guys like wave his, or whatever it is you guys are obsessed with, and then wave his hand at them.
would anybody be even a little surprised if he did that? That would be the most like. In fact, as you said it, I was thinking he has to have done this at some point, right? Like
Yeah.
he definitely did that at one point or another, giving a speech.
Oh God, yeah.
Whatever you idiots like, yeah, that's cool.
This is what you're into, right? You love that. Good for you. Good for you. Having a good time. Good for you. Yeah. Well, yeah. In all seriousness, though, without the weird Trump quote, congratulations. I say that too.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. There's a bunch of stuff, other stuff I wanted to ask you, but yeah, I think just to round off what we were talking about, yeah, I think even I can't remember what the exact quote is, but I think there's even like a Marx quote where there's probably somebody in the chat can say this, but about how we need to get past the human issues, or we need to get past the lower issues of life, the more basic issues of life, so we can worry about the human issues or something like that. And basically the point is like, yeah, like even if the United States accomplish what seems to be impossible task now of becoming a social democracy or something, like like everybody's problems wouldn't go away. Even if we became like a perfect economy or whatever, like our problems wouldn't go away. We still would have to have quote unquote personal responsibility, you know what I mean? But it's weird that sort of conservative social media people have hijacked that to mean something conservative, because it's a human thing.
Yeah, I get it, because they individualize everything.
Right.
Like to them, there is no such thing as a bad system.
Right.
Just like buck up and like fucking get to the top of it. Even if it's not a meritocracy, it is a meritocracy, and so everything's individual. So I get how they've sort of cornered it, but I just wish everybody had the same sort of approach that we're describing here, which is like, we can acknowledge the obvious systemic angle.
Yes.
While also talking about like, hey, probably a good idea to like, I don't know, not fucking do crack behind a dumpster at an Arby's or something.
Yeah, and especially with like a creative pursuit, even if you had twice the free time that you have now, it's really hard to do creative stuff. It's hard to push yourself to do the thing that you actually want to do. It's like to be self-motivated or whatever. It takes a while to even like get in a groove of doing something, like
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
That's so true.
Yeah. So,
my advice would be for people to just only do that, literally.
Yeah.
Like if you can, just only do that as much as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You mean like only like get into into a sort of a routine of doing your like a meaningful thing?
Yes, whatever the thing is that you're into,
Yeah.
whoever's listening to this, like whatever. I don't care how dumb it is, how much your family or friends would make fun of you, how much you feel like it's embarrassing or whatever. Fuck all that noise.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yep.
Do it with all of your free time.
Yep.
Do it.
Yep.
Like all of your free time.
Yep.
And then, like you're describing, then you develop a habit, and then you never know where it's going to take you, because that's the thing that you should be doing. Like that's what internally, that's what the direction you're being pushed in, and you can't fight that. That's where I feel like a lot of unhappiness comes from. It stems from that thing, and easier said than done, because people got to pay the bills, people have families to look after and all that stuff. But I'm just saying, with all of your free time, just do it. Don't think twice, just do it. And then, you get usually you get lost in that sort of an activity mentally, and that's good. It's almost like a reset, internally for people, and that's a positive thing.
Absolutely. There's a guy I always think about. Man, I can't remember that. I read a million years ago that book, The War of Art, and I think he talks about this guy William Carlos Williams, who was a writer / poet or whatever, but he was a full-time doctor. He was a family practice doctor, and he was slammed. He was really dealing with all kind, delivering babies and all this stuff. But he had a typewriter in his office or whatever, and he would like type, he would do his little stories. And I don't know, that guy would, or at least that myth, who knows how true a lot of that stuff is, but at least the myth of, like a guy who found time to do his thing and he just kind of got into a groove of doing it is always very inspiring, because, like there is time, even if it's just a little bit of time, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that I've read that book too. Yeah, the resistance that they talk about in that book, it's all about overcoming the resistance.
Yeah.
And there's always see, here's the thing. Life is hard enough as it is. Even if you're doing something you want to do, there will be days you don't want to do it.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
That's
so
what
even
it
if
is.
you
That's what
even
it
if you
is.
ideally break down exactly how your perfect day would go and you try to live that day over and over and over, by day 4 you might be like, I sort of don't want to do this. But at the end of the day, when you're done doing the thing and you put your head down on your pillow when you're going to sleep, you're going to realize that that was still the best way to spend the day. And you were just overcoming the resistance that was blocking you mentally. Because, like, if you did something different, you would feel worse off at night. So you're doing the right thing. So, yeah, that's something people should embrace and throw themselves into, because you'll feel like ultimately you're bringing yourself more meaning and purpose. And I argue that meaning and purpose actually overrides whatever initial satisfaction or gratification or happiness you might get from, a cheap cut in your process. Like, you could do something in the moment that you might think, oh, this will feel good in the moment, but that's the thing that there's no payoff for it later.
Right.
If you suffer through the thing that has meaning in it, then the payoff is later when you know you're on the right path and you're at ease mentally.
Yep. Okay, I got to. You can pass on this one if it's a political, if it's not politically convenient or whatever. But this is Chippy. Chippy is a mod and a friend of the show. She went on a Kanye-style racist rant last. I'm just kidding. She did not. She wants to know if you can comment on the Katie Halper situation with The Hill. I've been following that a little bit. I really like Katie Halper. She seems like a genuinely nice, decent person, but she got booted from The Hill for this is one of the things that I want to look at, all the kind of conservatives, like the Ben Shapiros who do this. Any critique, obvious critique of the Israeli government is anti-Semitic, is, that's a lie. That's ridiculous. No one believes that. You can criticize a government, Ben. I want to ask one of them. So are you anti people who live in Norway or whatever? When they do a video about how those countries are falling apart or whatever. Does that mean you hate the people of the? So anyway, I'm gonna go going off. But do you have any comment on the Katie Halper situation?
Yeah, so first of all, we had Katie the week after this happened. We had her on Crystal Kyle and Friends, and we talked about pretty much only this the entire time.
Yeah, right.
So definitely, everybody go check out that episode.
Check it out, yeah.
Crystal Kyle and Friends. You can listen for free on any of the podcasting apps, and if you want to see the video of it, you can subscribe on Substack, and then you get the video of it. But anyway, so yeah, what happened to her was total bullshit. And the thing is, we have firsthand experience of what The Hill is like, because Crystal and Sagar left The Hill, and they did it because it's effectively a corporate media outlet, and they were feeling pressure from above them to try to steer the direction of the show. Oof. And they were really uncomfortable with that. Yeah. And so myself and many other people behind the scenes were telling Crystal and Sagar, you guys can do this independently. You can do this on your own and you'll be fine. In fact, you might be better off. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, and we had this big thing, so Crystal had to get approval to do my podcast with her, Crystal Kyle and Friends, back when she was still with Rising at The Hill. And there was a whole thing that happened behind the scenes because they said, yes, you can go ahead and do the podcast. We did the podcast. We released the first podcast for free to everybody on YouTube. It was with Marianne Williamson, and it was a great episode. It got a lot of views. And then as soon as management at The Hill realized that our podcast was getting a lot of views, they then reached out to Crystal and said, you're not allowed to post your podcast anymore on YouTube. And if you do, we're going to sue you.
Oh, boy. No way.
That's what The Hill did.
Oh,
and
I did not know that. Wow. So they went.
Poor Crystal.
They
Crystal
went for it.
Crystal was stuck in the middle because then she's, of course, dealing with me, who's an equal and opposite psychopath compared to them.
Right.
And I'm my response to them is, suck my nuts. It's going on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I just told 400,000 people that this is the way it's going to work, that we're going to, you could support the show on Substack. If you pay $5, you get every video of the show, and, everybody else can listen the free audio version. I go through the whole thing. I tell the whole audience this, and then they try to pull the rug out from underneath us. And what happened was, like, at the last minute, you know, when they noticed we weren't bluffing and that we had basically a trump card on them, where, like, I told the guy who used to own the Hill, now he doesn't anymore, but I was like, look, if you do this, I'm going to do a segment on my YouTube channel where I call you out by name. I say exactly what you're doing, and you're going to hurt the Hill, because there's going to be a massive, you know, censorship scandal over this, and people are going to fucking be like, fuck the Hill, and you're going to hurt your own business model, you know? So why would you do this? Like, I have a trump card. I have the audience on my side. You have nobody. Why would you want to pick this fight? And so apparently that, you know, that sort of scared him enough where he backed off. But it was a whole thing dealing with the Hill. And so now, you know, they just changed management recently, but they had some voices that they kept on there. Katie Halper was one of them. She criticized Israel in a way that was totally factually accurate and devastatingly so. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they censored her, and they pretended like, no, it's totally about style. It's not about the substance of what you said, bro. And so they're lying. It's bullshit. Of course, it's about the substance of it. So what I want to tell people is beware corporate media that cosplays like it's fucking independent media. It's not. Independent media is where there's no filters at all, where you hear exactly what somebody's thinking. There's no extra layer of somebody on top of them saying, hey, don't say this, or whatever. And I also ask, to your point, like, how many people on the right who've made free speech like their number one issue for the past 4 fucking years, how many of them came out and defended Katie Halper, who was fired by a major news corporation because she criticized Israel? Did Ben Shapiro say anything? Did Dave Rubin say anything? Did Steven Crowder say anything? Did any of these fucking people say, hey, this is a real example of censorship and deplatforming? This is a real crackdown on freedom of speech, because they don't happen to like her position on the issue? They didn't say anything. It's total bullshit, man. It pisses me off. And I do feel bad for Katie. That was one of her main sources of income. And then it got taken away. And so she still does an independent media show. I don't know how much she makes through her independent show, but everybody should support her on Patreon, because it's really bullshit what happened to her. It's total bullshit.
Yeah, and she seems like such a decent person who just wanted to do the right thing. Yep. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that where it's these very clear-cut cases of limiting speech in this corporate authoritarian way, where the free speech warriors never speak up about it, which is weird, because those are the best examples, you know? So, it's
and
weird.
There's literal examples of governments cracking down over criticism of Israel. Like, there's that famous story out of Texas where, in order to get hurricane relief, you had to sign something saying, I won't support BDS.
I remember that.
What the fuck is this?
Yep.
There's anti-protesting laws that have popped up in a bunch of conservative states. And also, like, George Floyd protests. They did these, like, anti-free speech laws that were like, if you happen to run over a protester with your car, one of these was Florida, was DeSantis. Mm-hmm. If you happen to run over a protester with your car, maybe the burden's not on you. Maybe the burden's on them, and it's their fault. There's shit like this happens all the time. There are people who, The Intercept covered some woman, I think she was a teacher, and basically she was fired because she criticized Israel. And it's like, what the fuck? Here's an actual example of suppression of free speech, because the government is involved and they don't say anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this seems like, if you're looking for a quote-unquote social contagion, that's an example, because it's more just like, people don't want, they're just like, look, this could hurt my business, or they just don't want to touch something that's clearly not. I mean, you're supposed to criticize. This is the ideal of the freedom of speech thing, is to criticize governments. And here's a case where people are doing exactly that. It's like, oh, whoa, I might get in trouble. Or in the case of the Hill, it seems like there might have been a financial thing where the people who bought the Hill or whatever didn't like that, and that's where we get into kind of weird, the weirdest freedom of speech territory, where it's, this could get me fired stuff,
Yeah, when Crystal and Sagar were there, they would cover whatever story they wanted, but then afterwards sometimes they'd get a phone call, mm-hmm. and they'd get, like, prodded, don't do this. Mm-hmm. And there were a few instances where pharmaceutical companies advertised with the Hill, and they would do some very critical of Big Pharma segment, and they would get a call, like, they didn't really like that much.
Oh,
And they knew. It was like, okay, we can't fucking do this shit anymore at this place. This is crazy.
that's really rough, man.
Yeah.
Somebody, maybe just a few more questions because I know you probably got things to do. But somebody asked about Big Seltzer, that this is me selling out to Big Seltzer by having you on. Do you want to address? Because that's a deep cut, right? That's a true fan right there. Yeah.
Do you know the story behind that or no?
Yeah, bro, you sold out, dude. You took the Big Seltzer money, and you putting it on your show. You were encouraging the drinking of seltzer among youths and all this stuff.
I'm literally drinking it right now, by the way. But
there you go.
But so the story for people who don't know, so years and years and years ago, shit, it had to be like 2013 or 14. Like, this is really ancient stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was I was doing my show, and in the middle of a segment, I started like coughing. I had something in my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached over and grabbed my seltzer, which was next to me, and I drank it. And I was like, after struggling through a coughing fit, I was like, just so everybody knows, this is not an ad. This is not product placement. And then I said, but it may as well be. And then I held it up, the seltzer, and I was like, delicious, whatever, polar seltzer. Like, get some at a store near you. Some shit like that. And what happened was somebody who listened to the show, and this is back when my show was like way smaller, loyal fan of the show, decided to clip out that portion of it, and they sent it to the seltzer company that I was drinking the seltzer on. And they were like, hey man, you should sort of hook Kyle up because he just hooked you up.
I did not know about this part. That's amazing. Okay.
And then what happened was, this was bad. Things were more pure back then on the internet, right? And so this company, which probably has had like zero interaction throughout its entire existence, they probably had like 17 Twitter followers that are like all the family members of the fucking guy who owns the company, right? They were like, yeah, good idea. And so they literally sent me, and this is kind of cool, not gonna lie. They literally sent me this care package, right? It had like a seltzer shirt in there, which is, I've actually worn it before on air. And they also sent me discontinued flavors.
Ooh, nice.
That were like fucking delicious. There was like some strawberry seltzer type shit. It was a pretty big package. There were like 7 or 8 of the big seltzer things in there. And so ever since then, because then, I came on air and told the story and whatever. And then ever since then, people have called me the Big Seltzer Sellout. And I have this thing I say all the time on air because it's true. I've been doing my show for over 10 years. I've never once had a conversation with an advertiser. I have like an anti-advertising type thing. I like to just raise through small dollar donors and keep it like pure. I don't want to talk to any donors or anything. I have YouTube ads, but there's, AdSense handles that. Google and YouTube handle. I've never talked to an advertiser. And then, like, I bring that up, but then always the thing, everybody's like, there was that one time you did kind of talk to an advertiser when they sent you free seltzer. And that, guilty as charged.
You're compromised. You're compromised.
True.
You're tainted.
Seltzer for all will be my bill when I become president.
Somebody asked what you think of Jimmy Dore. If you don't want to answer that, you don't have to. And then somebody asked how you feel about the Jordan Peterson talk in retrospect.
So to answer the Jimmy Dore question, back when I was with the Young Turks, I was friends with everybody over at the Young Turks, and I was friends with Jimmy Dore, and I had pleasant exchanges with all of them. I would have considered them all friends, not just acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't need to rehash all of it, but basically what happened was there was sort of like a feud that was going on between the Young Turks and Jimmy Dore. And some of it was, political and policy focused, but then a lot of it also became like personal stuff. And I was uncomfortable the entire time. I tried so hard to like stay out of the entire fight, but at some point I kind of got like dragged into it, and I had to tell everybody what I thought about everything that went on in the feud.
Oh, right.
And let's just say that my take pleased literally nobody, because it was very divided, and it was like you had the pro Jimmy Dore people, and then you had the pro TYT people, and then I'm there going like, I think on this point, they have an argument. On that point, they have an argument. And, it's just everybody's like, boo, fuck you, like take a side type shit, right?
right.
And so, ever since then, it's actually kind of sad because I lost basically my friendship with all of them. And I used to be in, the Young Turks network. And then, at a certain point, I was like, I almost feel bad still being I was in their network and I left it because I felt bad. Like, here I am kind of harshly critiquing you while also part of the network, and it feels weird. And so we kind of grew apart in terms of even the stuff we cover or whatever. And so I lost all the tips and whatever business relationships and stuff, and it sucks, because I don't like drama. I'm not somebody who wants to fight with people or disagree with people publicly, and I try to keep all the private stuff private and not let it bleed out into the show. And yeah, ever since I sort of like broke up with all of them, whether it be Jimmy or the Young Turks, and it, the direction of their shows is just wildly different from the direction of my own show. And so if people want to go enjoy his stuff and watch his stuff, by all means go ahead. But obviously, I think the stuff I cover is more important and more interesting, and that's why I do the show the way I do it. So I guess that's all there is to say about it. It's sad how everything ended with all of them, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what was the other one too? Jordan Peterson?
Well, they just wanted to know how you felt about that whole talk, interview, whatever you want to call it, after. Like now, do you feel went well, I guess is their question.
So I do think I accomplished my goal, which was I want to ask simple questions. I want to try to get simple answers. He doesn't give simple answers, but I want to get asked direct questions. And really, I just kind of want to shine a spotlight on what he thinks so that really those old school Jordan Peterson fans can get a sense of, do I really agree with the direction that he's gone lately? So I think I succeeded on that front. My only regret is after the moment that was like the most famous moment where I kind of really drilled him down on, do you think adults should even be able to transition? Mm-hmm. And he said like, I don't know, right?
Yeah, it got a little weird. It got a little weird, yeah.
It did. It got very weird. It was very tense, mm-hmm. right? And even though I kind of handled it well in that I was calm and I was able to, when I interjected, it was quick. And so like I did well in that part of the exchange, but I do regret that after that exchange, I kind of let my foot off the gas pedal a little bit because I didn't want to be too combative the whole interview. Mm-hmm. And so for the rest of the interview, I did feel like he said a lot of things that I really take issue with, but I just sort of let it slide because I was I kind of felt like I had already was as aggressive and already was, held him accountable as much as I could without him sort of totally losing it. And so I took my foot off the gas a little bit for the remainder of the interview. And in retrospect, I do regret that a little bit because there were some things he said from then on out which deserved the same kind of pushback that he got in the very famous part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he be saying a lot of crazy stuff that you want to push him on, but he fires it out pretty quickly.
Yes.
Well, that was a great. It was just a great internet moment. Hopefully, the people who need to see it saw it. I do have another sort of interviewee kind of question for you, and then maybe I know you probably got stuff to do. I'll let you go, but
go ahead, dude. I got some time.
Okay, sweet.
Time.
How let me see. How to get with this? The Biden weed stuff is like there's some like hopeful thing to that a little bit, some slight hope to that. I want to ask you maybe more general, why is weed still illegal? Like, why is weed not totally legal and for recreational purposes when it's such a popular issue? They say it's over 70%. I would say it's probably, if we really got into it, it would be in the high 70s approval. What do you think?
Right, yeah. First of all, there's really no connection between how popular something is with the public and how quickly we get it in terms of policy.
Right.
I wish there was.
Yeah.
There's not.
Yep.
And that's largely because of the issue of corruption. When you have corporations and billionaires basically fund the entire political system, then the politicians first and foremost serve those donors over their constituents. So that's the answer to that. In terms of weed specifically, I think so. There was a time when you had pharma was against legalizing weed. There was a time when alcohol companies were against legalizing weed and they would lobby against it. And there's also, there's a lot of jobs that depend on the drug war. So like, for example, the private prison industry, they want weed to continue to be illegal. You have a whole apparatus within the government.
You think that's I haven't looked into this as much as I should, but the private prison industry, you think like tossing people in jail for marijuana, probably like marijuana sale, distribution charges is like they have a big interest in that, you think?
So I just covered the story like 2 shows ago, I think.
God damn. Okay.
David Sirota over at The Lever, he's a good journalist and he covers a lot of important stuff. He found, I forget what the exact number was. I think it was $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
You had the private prison industry donated $1 million to various Republican governors. And the reason they were doing it is because they want them to not do what Biden said, which is, hey, states, you guys need to free your nonviolent drug offenders too.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God. This is failed state stuff. Of course. That's failed state stuff. I'm sorry, but
and then there's jobs too. There's like the DEA. Think about how many jobs in the DEA are reliant upon the drug war continuing.
Yep.
You know. Like, so there's the momentum of the system of all these institutions which have been built out over decades to keep this fucking ruse going.
Right.
That stuff is still there. So in order to fight back against it, you're overcoming like massive institutional hurdles. And so it's a difficult thing to do. But look, keep it real, man. You know, and this for a long time, this was not a take that I'd have because the evidence didn't show this. But recently, Biden's not doing that bad. Like, he's doing a lot of decent things now between the student loan debt reduction thing, which has survived a number of attempts to take it out so far in court. Some of the cases against it have already been thrown out. Yep. Now this weed thing, same thing. Even like the Inflation Reduction Act, the 15% corporate tax rate is in the Inflation Reduction Act. There are corporations that have been paying fucking zero or getting a net subsidy for decades. And Biden and the Democrats changed that. The other thing they did is the Supreme Court ruled not that long ago that the Environmental Protection Agency is not really allowed to do environmental protection. They said, hey, you can't regulate carbon emissions. This is something the Supreme Court ruled. They were like, it's too broad, you don't have that authority, whatever. If this were to you can only do it if Congress specifically allocates, you can do this, and they haven't done it yet, so you can't do it. Well, in the Inflation Reduction Act, they slipped in a provision that said, actually, we're going to say, the carbon emissions are a pollutant, and the EPA can now regulate them again. So these are all things that, like, these are fucking great. Like, he's been better than I thought he would be. I was very, well known on the left as, like, I did a whole segment, like, this was after Bernie had dropped out.
I remember
feelings
that,
were
yeah.
raw.
I remember
and everybody,
people were giving
I
you
was
a
like,
very
I'm not voting
hard
for
time.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, I'm not voting for him because I'm not convinced he's even going to do one of the things that I want him to do. I went through a list of stuff. I was like, if I was convinced he was going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, I'd vote for him. If I was convinced he was going to, free nonviolent drug offenders, I'd vote for him. If I was convinced, I went through a whole list, he'd do Medicare for all, I'd vote for him. And now in retrospect, you look at that and it's like, I was just fucking wrong. Like, he's done a number of the things that I thought he wouldn't do. Like, even the $15 minimum wage thing, he didn't get that done, right? But there were like 6 or 7 Democratic senators who sort of blocked him on that front. Now, he could have like twisted arms and found a way, maybe, but it would have been difficult. But he did do what was in his authority to do, which was he signed an executive order that said $15 minimum wage for all federal employees and federal contractors. So that's about 500,000 workers that got a $15 minimum wage like that because he signed the thing that said to do it. Now, I was of the opinion, I don't even think he's in favor of a $15 minimum wage. I think he's bullshitting. I don't even believe him.
Mm-hmm.
But then he does that, and it's like, well, obviously you believe in it, and you actually are just being blocked, right? So you got to keep it real, man. Like, I was very down on Biden. There was a time when he had a 33% approval rating, and I was like, is he trying to fucking lose? He's not doing anything.
Right.
And then just recently now, it's just been a string of like, okay, we're going to do some pretty decent things. And so I believe in giving credit where it's due. And I believe in saying things, even if they're unpopular, you say them if you think it's true. And, this is not one of those takes of mine that's getting the subscribers rushing in or whatever, but it's I think it's accurate, which is why I'm saying it. So I think he deserves credit. I think he's already the best president of my lifetime. I think he's already surpassed Obama.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree on that. You know what I wanted to ask you? This is a little bit off topic, and I think we have to. It's just like the thing we were talking about with the personal responsibility, quote unquote thing. It's like you have to play on the field that you're on. You have to play the ball as it lands or whatever. Not in. I think there is a lot of like this isn't an ideal. It's not the ideal situation. We were probably in the same boat in 2020 when Biden got elected, but now it's like, this is better than the alternative for sure, right? Like, we can all agree on that. So there's that. But I wanted to ask you, You had Vivek Chibber on, right? On Crystal and Kyle. Did I make that up?
Yes, we had Vivek Chibber on Crystal Kyle and Friends. Yeah.
So he is, from what I understand, I really like him. What I understand, he's like, there needs to be a class war. Do you agree with that? Do you think there needs to be do you think class war is the most important thing right now?
So I think that my advice for the longest time has been, lean into the stuff where you are the most popular.
Yeah.
So that would mean, things like $15 minimum wage, things like bringing back strong unions, things like taxing the wealthy and taxing corporations.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, since these are like our most popular positions, it's best to lead with your most popular position. However, I will say there's one big asterisk in that conversation now, which is we just realized that there's a total all-out war being waged on the social issues front, where the Republican Supreme Court just overturned Roe versus Wade. Like I said, 157 Republicans in the House voted against gay marriage. 195 voted against the right to contraception. They want states to be able to ban contraception. So given those facts, I would wage like an all-out war on all fronts. So, because I do think those are actually political layups too. Like, being pro-choice is a political layup. Being pro-gay marriage is a political layup. That's another issue that's like, 70% or more now.
Right.
So I think you fight the war on all fronts, and you argue like, look, we're pro-freedom. They're authoritarian. We're the ones who are on the side of freedom. And so, I think you fight both at the same time, basically. But to his general point, you need a class war. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
I think I've been reading this book that I've been kind of like, reporting on, doing a little book report for the patrons, and it's all about the history of the Supreme Court. And one of the interesting things is, like the Supreme Court, like what we're seeing now, where they're kind of, siding with big business all the time and, making these decisions that seem very against normal people and all this stuff, is actually the rule and not the exception. And especially cases like the Dred Scott case is pretty interesting, because it's like, slavery was already becoming, there was a real social movement against slavery, which could not be, nobody gives a fuck what the Supreme Court says if there's enough people who are willing to fight and die to end something that they know is wrong. So like, that's where I think, where I really agree with Vivek Chibber is that if enough people, and it's a hard thing because everybody's just trying to make it through the day and survive and stuff. But if enough people have this like almost routine, like political consciousness type thing, where it's like there's certain things we don't accept that are off the table, and things will get really bad if you try to do some of this stuff. I think that's where it's going to come from, like real positive change. Like, okay, then not to keep going on and on, but one of my favorite examples is, I think it was like Finland. McDonald's wanted to come to Finland. Have you heard the story? Where like,
yes,
it's one of the best recent political stories, where McDonald's wanted to come to Finland, or it might be Norway, I can't remember. Okay, who gives a fuck? One of the Nordic countries, and McDonald's didn't want to deal with the union. They were like, screw you, we're gonna pay the employees nothing, we're gonna pay them whatever we want, we're not gonna even talk to the union. And so they did, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a solidarity strike kind of thing across industry, where it was literally like the people who ship the crap to build the stores, the construction workers who actually build the McDonald's. When they heard about this, they said, okay, we're just going to stop building your stores. We're going to stop building your stores. We're going to stop shipping your the actual stuff that you need to make the food in the McDonald's. We're just going to stop doing all that until you sit down with the union. It's like, it's such an inspiring story. And guess what? McDonald's is doing fine in these countries. The business didn't have to fold up because they have to pay their employees $22 an hour or whatever.
Right.
But that's one of the inspiring things of people who kind of normal people just working normal jobs, who are like, oh, this is just a reflex we have, where if you kind of try to fuck with us on that, we're going to make life impossible for you, basically.
There's a great line in an old Michael Moore documentary where he says, in the U.S., the people are scared of the government. in France, the government is scared of the people.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that perfectly encapsulates exactly what you're talking about here.
Yep.
Yeah, there needs to be like a culture of direct action and a culture of like there's certain lines that you're not going to cross because we're not going to accept it. And I do think there is a little bit of, a positive thing that happened recently is there has been a revival of the labor movement that is super real, and it's even being reflected in the polling. Like labor movement is more popular now than it's been since like the fucking New Deal era.
Yep.
And that's why you're seeing a wave of Starbucks is unionizing. There's somebody who's a fan of my show and of Breaking Points who is trying to unionize a Home Depot now. And so you look at Home Depot might get unionized. There's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, the Amazon labor union. There's a lot of stuff that's really it's hopeful. It's hopeful that people have hit their breaking point. They realize nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And so they're reacting accordingly. But to your point, you made a couple interesting points there about the Supreme Court too. The Supreme Court, people were all butthurt in corporate media about how there were murmurs of like, hey, is the Supreme Court losing legitimacy?
Right.
And they're doing this thing of like, how dare you say that? I mean, just because we did a decision you don't like, now you're saying we're losing legitimacy? And it's like, actually, if you understand American history, you would know this has happened previously. There was a time when Abraham Lincoln was like, yeah, I don't agree with what you said, so I'm just not going to listen to it. And it's like, what are they going to do? What are you going to get your Supreme Court army to come crack down on it? You don't have one, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, you're only as useful as you are allowed to be.
Yep.
This is something FDR did too. FDR said, because they were going to slap down the New Deal, and FDR was like, if you do that, I will pack the court and I will get the New Deal. So just, you better rule the other way or I'm going to fucking end you. And they were like, oh, okay, fine. Yeah, New Deal is constitutional. So this is American history. American history it's messy and there's a lot of things that go on that people don't know the specifics. And when you learn the specifics, you're like, oh shit, like it took like a massive effort to fight back against these regressive forces in society in order to move us in the right direction. And, now I don't think any of the talk is crazy. The talk about like, hey, let's stack the court, for example. Tom Hartman, who's, one of my idols in doing what I do, he talks about how he thinks Marbury versus Madison was decided wrong, that judicial review is bullshit, and it was the court basically giving themselves this authority that they didn't have to basically have veto power on the executive branch and the legislative branch and say, hey, that's not constitutional. And it's like, okay, but what if your interpretation of what you think is and isn't constitutional is fucking batshit crazy? There was a whole era of the court called the Lochner era where they ruled you have what's called a right to contract as an individual.
Yep.
So that means an employer and an employee, if they get together and make a contract, the government is not allowed as a third party to introduce rules and regulations along with it. So they used that in order to say it's unconstitutional to do federal child labor laws. You can't ban child labor. You can't mandate that if somebody works overtime, they have to get paid extra. You can't mandate a minimum wage at the federal level. This is what this shit was used for. Mm-hmm. And then it took FDR coming in with a fucking sledgehammer to break this shit up and say, this ain't going to be the case anymore, boys. It's changing. And so, yeah, look, I used to be a believer in judicial review. I just hope that it would be used in a positive way. Like, there are examples of, like, the Supreme Court was a check on George W. Bush and some of his biggest excesses, like the whole due process thing about people who were in Guantanamo Bay and they had no process, and the Supreme Court's like, I don't know about all that. It's a little too great. So there are times it's been used for good, but overall, if you do, like, in the aggregate, all the decisions are bad, right?
Oh, boy.
So I think judicial review is probably bad. I think stacking the court is a reasonable idea. I do think the Supreme Court is losing legitimacy as it's happened before. And that's, by the way, you know who knows this? Alito. Alito knows this. Or is it Alito or Robert? I think it's Roberts, actually. Who's the Chief Justice? I think it's Roberts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
yeah, right.
he understands this, and he, behind the scenes during the Roe versus Wade discussion, he apparently was like begging Clarence Thomas and begging the justices to his right. He was saying, you fucking idiots, you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater and overturn Roe versus Wade. You could just limit it more. So you could say, oh, right now the Casey standard is like viability and after you can ban abortion. Mm-hmm. He was like, yeah, change that to like 15 weeks if you want, right? Like push it a little further back. But if you throw out the whole fucking thing, we're gonna, like, our word is gonna mean nothing.
Yeah.
because all they're relying on, the president to be like, yeah, I accept your decision, but shit, if fucking President Bernie Sanders was in there, he might be like, no, don't agree. This is not going to be the law of the land. Sorry, and then they have nothing they can do about it, right? So anyway, I'm babbling on, but I guess final point I'll say is, Mike Gravel had an idea when he ran for president, which was he thinks there should be another branch of government, and it should be basically like the people's veto. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do a form of like judicial review, have it so that there's a branch of government where the people get to directly vote on something. So like the people get the last say. And so if you're talking about something like the minimum wage or the war in Iraq or whatever the fuck, people could come in and be like, yeah, we think this is fucking bullshit and this is what we want to do. And that like overrides the other branches of government.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd be interested to see that. Seems like a lot of U.S. history is has been trying to limit that exact.
Right. That's right.
Trying to stop that exact thing. But one interesting thing that I've kind of learned about the Supreme Court history and all those bad decisions and being on the wrong side of history so many times is that even despite that, like and people have sent me messages like, oh, like it's very depressing to hear about this child labor history, and honestly, adult labor history. We're talking recent. We're talking 120 whatever years. They're like, it's very sad to hear about this. It's horrible, and it was horrible. But like, look at the progress we've made in not that much time, even with everything stacked against us in terms of the Supreme Court and all that, and all this powerful minority and all that stuff. We still have made progress. We don't have children getting their hands chopped off in coal processing plants and all this stuff anymore. Like it still happens. So I don't know. That does make me hopeful. There is a hopeful message in history, despite it having all that that horrible these horrible stories.
Yeah, it's people get fed up and then they fight back.
Yeah.
And we slowly but surely chip away and make things better. And well, I think what everybody learned recently with Roe versus Wade is that it's actually not the case that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, that famous MLK quote. It's actually the arc of history is fucking chaos. It's right. Like things get worse, things get better, things get a lot worse, things get a little better. And it's a constant battle, but the process of the fight is the most important thing. That you need to have a constant check on. And look, it's true that socialists make the argument like this is the problem with capitalism, is that you're always sort of fighting a losing battle and you're always up against the forces of capital. And I think there's an element of truth to that, but at the very least we could try to make ourselves a social democracy like the Scandinavian countries, and then people would be a hell of a lot happier, there'd be a hell of a lot less depression, and we'd all be better off.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll ask you one more question, which is, it's another, look, if this is annoying, I apologize, but one of my, I don't know, a truly bizarre social media character, and I guess AM radio character, Charles Kirk. You debated this guy. People love,
yes.
On my channel, they love me doing videos and making fun of Charles Kirk because he is a uniquely odd young man. Like, despite having horrible political takes and being kind of a paid guy to say stupid stuff, he is just an odd, he says odd stuff. He's kind of a weird guy. What was it like debating him, and what were your takeaways from that?
Okay, so man, there's so much I can say about this. It was fun. First of all, it was fun. Backstage, he's actually very, normal, nice guy. It actually makes me think he's playing a role. He knows the role.
I definitely feel that.
Yeah, totally. And I think I crushed him in that debate. I think if people go back and watch it, they'll enjoy it. It was fun. Ben Burgess also debated Charlie Kirk, and Ben Burgess did a phenomenal job, I think, as well. But so there's one moment that I could bring up, which was it was awesome. So in the debate, there was a moment where he said something really silly and I got kind of heated. And so I made this casual offhanded comment like, okay, Charlie, sure. Why don't you go cry about it and wear your diaper? I said something like that. And I was referencing, he had done a protest years before where he was trying to go after like these crybaby fucking college kids, and he put on a diaper and was like protesting at a college or something wearing this diaper, and like I think he was trying to mock them, like you guys need diapers, you're such fucking crybabies and snowflakes. But of course the thing that happened was what you would expect to happen, which is everybody just had this picture of Charlie Kirk in a fucking diaper and was making fun of him, right? And so after that line was somewhere in the middle of the debate, or like towards the end of the debate, and afterwards backstage, like Charlie Kirk's, I don't know, his like agent or manager or somebody who's affiliated with him comes up to me and says like, hey man, yeah, that was good, that was a great debate, you know, it went over well. And he's like, but you know, the diaper line, please just don't do that. And I was like, my bad.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's off limits. The diaper thing. It's just, that's so funny to know that really upsets him.
Yeah, it did. And then, but funny enough, I think his people sort of reached out to me after that. They wanted to do a show with me, like a podcast or something. And of course, I had no interest in that whatsoever.
That would be just way too stressful.
Oh yeah,
like
that.
Like
no.
Crystal and Sagar is a good, you know, like, because Sagar's kind of, he's not annoying the way Charlie Kirk is. You know, he's not just an insane partisan hack. Right,
like
exactly.
he has bad takes sometimes, but it's not like you're a fucking psycho shit. You know?
Right. Yeah, that would be just grind. That would grind me down to have to deal with Charlie Kirk on a podcast or something.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much all the crap I have. I mean, do you want to plug what you got going on, or tell us about any upcoming stuff that you're excited about, or anything like that?
Sure. So if people want to go subscribe to Secular Talk, I'd appreciate that. I've been knocking on the door of 1 million subscribers for like a fucking year and a half, and I've never got there because the algorithm fucking hates my guts. And what I was around for the Bernie wave in 2015, 16, and 2020, and like the growth was ridiculous in 2015 and 16 and 17. It was huge. And then there was a certain point where I just hit a wall, and a lot of other people hit a wall. And it was right at the exact time that the YouTube CEO was on a podcast and basically admitted, like, yeah, we got a lot of shit for, promoting misinformation and like shitty content. And so we decided we're going to prioritize authoritative news and politics now. So they just said, like, the algorithm is rigged and it's going to like force feed you shit like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. And also if you like alternative media stuff, like independent media stuff, what they do is they'll feed you like John Oliver's show, right? Like they have the approved, anti-establishment shows that they put out there. And like, so the growth has just been non-existent for like a year and a half now. So if anybody wants to go and subscribe to try to get me over that 1 million mark, I really appreciate that. It's been a fucking constant battle. I mean, I've kind of given up in the back of my head. It's like, I might never get there, or if I do get there, I'll probably fall back below it anyway within a month or two. But yeah, I'd appreciate people sub there. And then, you can check out Crystal Kyle and Friends too. That's available on any podcast app out there. Also, if you want to be a Substack member, you can pay $5 and get the videos of Crystal Kyle and Friends a day early. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And I love your show, dude. I watch every video you put out, and I always fucking laugh. I think you're hilarious, and keep it up.
Oh, too nice. Well, yeah, thank you for what you do. You've been doing it for so long, and doing such a good job for so long. You're a national treasure, and we love to see it. And yeah, thanks for talking to me. Can you come back sometime?
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Hell yeah. All right, cool. Well, I'll hit you up. Talk to you later.
All right.
We'll take a few, see if anybody's on Discord. Oh, is my stream freezing? Okay, stream looking good. See if anybody's on Discord. Oh, wow. Like nobody. Penja or Penya, are you there? Penja.
Hi.
Hi, how do you say your name?
Penja.
Penja. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good. What's up? Hey,
I just, I love the show, and I am so glad to
Oh,
talk to
hey,
you. Oh, no,
what's
this is
that
my-
dog? What's that dog doing back there?
Oh, oh, oh.
What kind of dog? What kind of dog we working with back there?
We got 2 mutts and we got a half corgi, half Australian shepherd, and she's just a rocket. You better believe it.
Ooh, little Stumpy or what?
Little stumpy, little long dog.
Oh, that's a. Can you put a picture in the chat maybe if you have
I
time?
sure will. Oh yeah.
Hell yeah, brother. I love it. Well, I'm gonna say this before you say anything else. You got a crystal clear mic, my friend. That mic is sounding really good. Did you get a
Thank
new
you so
mic
much.
or something?
I actually am a podcast producer for a living, so yeah. I keep it classy.
Who do you produce? Bad Faith? Okay, don't tell.
How did you know? How do you know? I did.
Never mind. Don't tell. Well, what's up? You got anything to share with the beautiful audience?
Well, yeah, I was actually in a production meeting, and it's funny. I know that you're from Austin. I'm from Dallas originally. I'm in Nashville now,
Oh.
and we're all kind of just like having a bitch fit, like a little group, a little wine session.
Mm-hmm.
Our boss is a bit of a ding dong sometimes, and he just seems to always make inappropriate jokes. And we talk about trans people a lot, for example, and we don't work with any trans people, and it just seems a little unhinged at times. I was wondering for you, and I know that you probably started YouTube with like COVID-ish time.
Yeah.
So you have like normal work experience. What's your line for ding dong?
Ding.
Like where do you draw the line on like speaking up and being like, hey, shut the fuck up, even if it's your boss,
Yeah. Well, so I still, have a technically a day job, even though I spend less time doing it. But before the pandemic and stuff, I went into an office, and actually before that, really before that, I had a different job. Basically, I worked for a different company, and they were pretty like Trumpy actually.
Yeah.
They weren't just Trumpy. They were just kind of like a lot of like just weird, kind of like weird people sort of that I didn't really get along with, and they would kind of say stuff like that. And to be honest, what I usually do at work in like an office situation is I just like anything, I try to avoid the people I know who are going to say stupid shit, and then I spend more time with the people who I'm more on the same page with. And that's pretty much all you can do, because like if you start challenging people, a lot of them will just like spiral, and they might not get it. So it's the same thing I kind of do with like family members who are into stuff that I think is disgusting, where I just I change the subject. Change the subject,
Well, see, the thing is that so everyone in like my actual circle that I actually interact with, like we all have like the Slack channel that we send each other files on, and then we have like the Discord for work, and like we literally we just shit on this guy all day pretty much. so like it's everyone is aligned, and then we get in a meeting with this guy, and he's like, he's one of those guys. He's like, I'm a pretty centrist guy, and so I'll tell you that like I don't really like Trump all that much, but this Biden guy, it's like, oh my, it's like constantly, and we all just kind of like stone faced like, ugh. And it's one of those things,
Why don't you send an anonymous note? Be like, type it so they can't get your handwriting, and write like, hey, shut the hell up with all your put that anonymous, and then be like, it's from all of us or something. So then they can't get you. They can't get one specific person. You know what I mean?
I understand. I think that he understands too, because he's had apparently like exoduses before of coworkers.
Ooh, so he needs to cut the crap. All
right.
right.
I don't know. He's a free speech warrior.
Penja, come back and let us know what happens, how you deal with this. All right.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
Bye. Good guy. Wow. Good guy, but he's dealing with a lot of crap right there. That guy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, guys? Dealing with it's so. I mean, is your day job to take the towers down? Hold on, where is it?
That is a frickin' predator right there.
No, that's not it. I can't find. Oh.
Take the towers down now.
Oh, thank you so much with that. With the Go campus. Thank you so much. Startup capital for your Meemaw and Peepaw protection software. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Well, guys, yeah, I do want to take more calls, but I should probably wrap it up. Maybe we'll read a few chats, and then we'll get out of here. I work at Barnes & Noble. You know what? I actually had a teacher in high school who left teaching. This was after I graduated high school. I saw her working at Barnes & Nobles. I was like, now I'm in control. Give me this book. And she called security on me, and I was brutally beaten. What do you think about Yay 2024? Well, he does have those hats. He printed the hats, so that means he's gotta do it.
Hi.
What is Discord? Somebody says it took me forever to figure out what Discord is. It took me forever. Where's Grimes?
Hello, yeah.
How are you? So we got another. Wait till Kyle sees this interview. We got another interview here with Grimes.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of opinions on politics as well.
Okay, what's one of them?
Free hot dogs.
Okay, so you.
Yeah, I just made that up. Grimes out.
Okay, Grimes out. Free hot dogs. Yay versus DeSantis versus Trump. Yep, that would be America in 2024. That would make perfect sense to where we're at. Arm Brown, do you ever make your soundboard open to the public? Don't really know how I would do that. I was thinking about making a soundboard app, but it would have other people saying the quotes. Okay. Arm Brown is fun to watch. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Arun, on the Rise and Grime. All right. Well, guys, thank you for watching this. That was a fun talk with Kyle. Man, he's been famous for a while, right? Been famous for a while. I feel like as long as I've been on the internet, he's been pretty well known. We see all the messages that are held for review. I know that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun, you know what I mean?
Take a doo-doo toilets.
I think that's so funny. It's an easy thing to fix too, but I think it's so stupid. It's so stupid that I just want to keep it.
What?
Yeah, and guys, go subscribe to the podcast feed as well. I think I'm going to start uploading more stuff there. Can somebody recommend me a good book on finance? Matthew is asking. Not off the top of my head. Arm Brown, want to hear my producer tags? Pian, yes. Who was on? Kyle Kolinsky, yes, he was on. Somebody's talking about a Matt Walsh video. Hey, Arm Brown, what do you think of Roger Stone pretending to be you at the Panera Bread? I'm okay with it. It's fine, depending on what he ordered. Did he order one of those bread bowls with the soup in it? If he did that, it's fine, because that's a good order. Oh, thanks so much, Machine Man. Thank you for the 2 bones. Well, guys, please stay committed to our project of
Take the towers down now.
You know what I mean? Somebody asked for this drop too.
I know RM Brown. I know RM Brown.
That's on YouTube.
Where? So this guy RM Brown, where is he?
That's on YouTube.
Okay, and?
You're terrible.
Hey, come on, man.
The wind burned her a little bit in the pool.
Hey.
Hey, Grimes, you're having some sound problem.
Yeah, I am. I love that. The wind burned her a little bit in the pool. The wind burned her a little bit in the pool.
You like that?
Yeah, that's my favorite. I think he's right on that.
You think the wind burned someone in the pool?
That's happened to me many times. You know, I do laps sometimes, and I'll be like, something's burning me in the pool. And then I go, the wind burned me a little bit in the pool.
Yeah, that's great. So that happened?
Yeah, you know, I'm just trying to swim my laps. You know, I got my, what is it, a boogie board?
So you take a boogie board in the lap, like the lap pool?
Yeah, I do. Anyway, the wind burned her a little bit in the pool. Bye-bye.
Another great contribution by Grimes. All right, guys. Oh, yeah. I did mean, that's so funny. Zero signal. I did mean to take that out as a drop. Tucker Carlson goes, there's a part where he's talking about God knows what, and he goes, hey, little girl, come get in my van. And I think that's got to be a drop. Hey, little girl, come get in my van. I think might need to be a Tucker drop. Every time it shows me you're live, it's always during the last 5 minutes. Oh, God. So, like, do you use the same sweater, or do you have a whole closet? I only use the sweater for doing... I don't wear the sweater out in the real world. But I need to get a new one, actually. I gotta do that. All right, guys. Well, stay...
Sniffing.
And...
Take the towers down now.
All right? I want to play Wind Burned Her a little bit in the pool, but I can't find it. All right, guys. Have a good day. It's Tuesday. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. Not one of the best days. We hate it, and we do this to it. So, try to keep it real. Chippy, I'm sorry I made fun of you. I was just kidding. We all love Chippy. She is one of the classics of the show. She is very valued in the community, right?
I know RM Brown. I know RM Brown.
Okay, last one. Somebody donated, so the last thing. Arun Brown, can you put Peter Peckorak Peter Peckorak clipping from Little Mermaid Sebastian and Musica Pop on Spotify? Okay, yes. I barely remember even what the Peter Peckorak thing is, but I will put it on. And thank you so much. Love you guys. Bye-bye.